All right, let's go ahead and get started. I see we have a few people in here. Once again, my name is Jamie Smith, and I'm going to be going over the productivity tools that MicroCAD has for Autodesk AutoCAD. So the first screen that you're seeing here right now is our on our website, actually. If you just go to microcad3d.com, up here at products and productivity tools. And we actually have a couple other productivity tools as well, Revit and 3D, Civil 3D productivity tools as well. So, and the ones we're going to be talking about today are obviously the AutoCAD ones. So if you wanted to get a little bit more information, we have a brochure right here, and this kind of goes through everything that I'm going to be talking about today. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have an overview of each of the tools, their functionality, and then how they may be used to help you accomplish some things that you may have always wanted to do in AutoCAD, but you haven't been able to do up until this point. We're also going to discuss the specific tools and how they relate to selection filters for specific objects, how you can populate spreadsheets of data from within your drawing in different ways that you haven't been able to before, and then as well as annotation and creating some legends that I feel are in a much more user-friendly way than what standard AutoCAD has available to us as users. We'll also go over some other tools called the open folder tool, copy to clipboard tools, which sound very basic, but they're actually really helpful tools that, again, are not available to us in out-of-the-box AutoCAD. And then after the presentation, we'll have a brief question and answer session. So you can submit any questions to me in the chat, and then I'll get to those at the very end. Okay, so without any further ado, I'll get started. I'm going to spend most of my time in AutoCAD actually showing you how these products work right as you'd be working with them. So if you have them already on your computer, and maybe you're here because you just want to learn a little bit more, maybe you got them from us and you haven't really had a chance to dive in, they should be on your ribbon up here, the MicroCAD AutoCAD tools. And it opens up just like any other ribbon that you would have your other commands in. The first command that we're going to start, or the first panel, I should say, that we're going to start with is the selection panel right here. And this selection filter, which I kind of briefly mentioned before, is similar to AutoCAD's quick select tool. That's actually on the home tab over here. It's one of these tools, sorry. This tool right here, the Q Select, is the quick version of that, or the alias for that. So so back to the MicroCAD tool. So this selection filter right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this. This tool actually, when you open this up, allows you to open and view all of the objects that you have in your drawing, regardless of what you have selected. Whereas Q Select actually kind of works in the reverse, that it actually goes through and selects everything for you, or you put in parameters and it will select everything for you. But this actually shows you a list, which I think is really helpful to get just kind of an organized list of what you have going on in your drawing here. And it also breaks it down by a couple different ways. So you can group by type, you can group by layer, and then you can also have it grouped by type and layer. And then in each one of these areas, you can expand these, and you can see a little bit more detail about what lives on what layer, what object it is. So for example, I have an arc here. It's telling me there's one, specific arc, and I know probably exactly what that is. It's probably a chair, and it's probably the arc that's on the back of the chair right here. So, again, it's a good way to kind of organize your drawing and see the different objects that you have going on in there. And there's a lot, a lot of information. The block reference, I think, is really nice too. If you weren't, sure how many blocks you had in your drawing, you can see all that information there too. And obviously your line count is going to be pretty high. That's usually, the majority of a drawing is pretty much lines, so you're going to have a lot of those there. But it's nice that it breaks it up by layer if you ever needed that information. And then our MText and Polyline, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that one. Let's see. So the next command here, this tool, I should say, is the select elements on layer. So this one allows you to select an entire layer just by selecting one object, which I think is really cool. Similar to, your select similar, command, but this one does function a little bit easier because select similar would select, similar object types, whereas this one will select the whole layer for you. So let's go ahead and see how that one works. So I'm going to click on Select Elements on Layer, and I'm going to do this desk here that I have. Click on Select Objects, and then once I've selected everything that I want to use, I just hit Enter, and then it selects everything on that layer for me. So that was a general furniture layer that I had in my drawing, and it selected everything for me. So that's a really convenient way to just accomplish selecting a layer if you need to. Then if once you have everything selected, you could modify these in any way. You could move, copy, rotate, or do whatever you need with them. I'm going to go ahead and hit Escape and just deselect all those objects that I selected. And then the next command here that I wanted to show you is the Show X Data. So this allows you to show entity data associated to an object right in the command line history, which you are actually, just for kind of a side note, you're actually able to copy and paste data from your command line history and paste it anywhere in a Word document or Excel or anything like that. So you can actually use that, later on if you needed to, or if you needed to reference back to it later. So you first need to add some data to the object with the command X data, or if you had added attributes to something, those would be included in that X data. And then you would have, object data associated with that block. So then you would use the Show X Data command to see entity information about particular objects. In this case, I'm going to use a block. I have this chair here, this instructor's chair that I'm going to use as my example. So if I have that select, I will actually click on the command first. So I'm going to click on Show X Data. I'm going to click on my chair and then hit Enter. And then, as I said, everything is actually in the command line. So if I click on there, I didn't have much information about this, but I did have that it was a chair. It tells me what layer it's on, and any other entity data that I may have included in that block when I created it. So very convenient if you just need to reference a block that you have in your drawing really quickly. So now we're going to move on to the Modify panel up here. This one's, whoops, grabbed my properties palette there. So the spreadsheet properties is really great. So you'll notice the functionality of this looks very similar to any spreadsheet software that you may use. Generally, most people are using Excel. So you probably notice the functionality of that. And again, this one utilizes entity data, similar to the Show X Data option. You can make changes right in AutoCAD. So if we click on this, I'll show you what that looks like. And again, I'm going to use that chair block that I used, selected it and hitting Enter. And so yeah, you'll see this looks very similar to any spreadsheet software that you may be familiar with. So you can actually make changes to certain objects depending on what they are. You can actually make little changes to them, like their color or how they appear. A block is actually harder to change because, as you know, that's created, that's set to the layer that block is on. But if I select, let's see, so if I click on select here, oops, I'm going to actually I'll just go back into it. If I have a line selected, see, it's showing me a little bit more information. It's showing me where it's living in the drawing. If I scroll over here, it tells me the layer that it's on. It tells me the line type, which in this case is by layer. Same with material. Color index, if I wanted to change that right here, I can change that very easily. And it will push that data out. So if I just click apply, and you can see that line that I had selected changes. And then I can also open and save this in an Excel spreadsheet. So I can go ahead and just open that, and then you can push those changes back into AutoCAD, which is really helpful. Okay, and the next panel that we're going to talk about is the geometry panel. So the first tool that we'll discuss here is the 3D offset. And this is obviously more commonly used for 3D drawing that you may be doing in AutoCAD. So I'm just going to show you in a slightly easier way. But if I click on this 3D offset, and then the great thing about this is that you're offsetting, an object. In this case, I'm going to do a line, but it's allowing you to offset in the Z direction as well as horizontally. So it's a slightly different tool that you're used to. And I think the best thing to do with this one is to try it yourself and see how it feels, because it can be a little, it's very different, but it is really helpful. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just specify, I'm going to offset a couple lines from this plotter here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is specify my horizontal offset. I'll just keep it at 3 feet, but you can type in, whatever you need to. So I'm just going to hit enter. And then my vertical offset, I'm going to make that 3 feet also. And I will hit enter. And then now I can just go ahead and then whatever direction I click, whether it's right or left of the line that I selected, it will offset it in that direction. So if I click there, and then I will do this line as well. So it looks like these lines are just off in space. I'm going to hit escape and get out of the tool. And then I'm going to click here and go home, because we know if we click the home button, it will bring us to a 3D view. And then you can see it elevated those lines for me. So if I orbit around here, I can see that those lines were offset and elevated for me in the Z direction. So I'm going to go back to the top here. I'm going to actually delete these. I don't want them to confuse me later. And then the next command that we're going to talk about is convert to 3D polyline. So if I had a polyline drawn in here, which I don't know that I do, so I'm going to actually draw one really quickly. And if I draw, okay. And so I've got a polyline here, and I actually did not close it. So I'm going to make sure that I do that. We want to make sure our polylines are always closed. And I'm going to, so this is just a really easy way. So as you see, if I click on this, my properties are telling me this is just a regular polyline. When I click on convert to 3D polyline, this is so easy. I just click the object that I want to convert, hit enter, and then it seems kind of redundant, but the erase is actually kind of our standard option that you would use. So all this is asking is if you want to erase the line after you've drawn it, or if you want to, the polyline, or if you want to keep it in place. I'm going to say yes, I do want to delete it. And then once I'm ready to go, I can just hit enter. And then once I click on that polyline, now you see in my properties, it's been converted to a 3D polyline. So just a very easy way to do that for you for whenever you're drawing in 3D here in AutoCAD. I want to make sure I don't forget anything about that one. Oh, and then yes, I almost did forget something. So the cool thing about this one is it also allows you to add multiple vertices to a rounded shape that you may need to elevate, which, you know, the goal of drawing in 3D is to try to make our objects look as realistic as possible. So this, you know, helps us in allowing us to do that. So I'm going to draw I'll just draw a circle and give us a rounded shape here. And then if I convert that to 3D polyline, and then the way to select a rounded shape is to click on the mid-ordinate option instead of the erase. Remember, that was what we did last time. So mid-ordinate. And then for the distance, so if you made this really small, which 3/32 of an inch is really tiny, that would give us more vertices. That's a little small, so I'm actually going to just do 1 unit or 1 inch and then hit enter, and then hit enter again to specify. And you'll see it actually comes out kind of choppy. So if I did more of those, I would get a more rounded shape. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to undo, and I'm going to try that again. I'm going to do, maybe I will go back to 3/32 of an inch to make it a little bit more accurate. So I selected my object, hitting enter, mid-ordinate, and then for the distance this time, I'll do 1/16 of an inch. Enter, enter again, and then you can see it's not as choppy this time. It looks a lot smoother, and when I click on it, I have a lot of different vertices. So as you know, in 3D, that will make the shape look a lot smoother and a lot more accurate, especially for rendering purposes. So those are, you know, good to know that you can do that. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is these annotation tools. Now, these are really great annotation tools that you can add to your drawing. I actually have another drawing set up for this. So the first thing that I want to do is if I had an elevation or multi-elevation grid or grading that I needed to label, I can do that really easily by just clicking on the label elevation option. So if I click on that, now down, let's see, down in the command line, they ask us first to pick a point or base, and we want to specify a base for our elevation. So we say this is the starting point. Anything above this will be positive. Anything below this will be negative. So if I click on base, and I'm going to make my base point right here. And the base, so the base of the elevation, let's just say it's 500. Sure. Now, as I pick each point, it measures the elevation. Oh, my point was a little off there. It measures the elevation height for us. And, you know, goes down because I remember my base that I started with was at 5. So, so then once I'm done, I can just hit enter, and then I have all those elevation points there set up for me. The next thing that we can do is label our slope. So I actually do have some slopes here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these because they're going to get in the way, I think. So if I just select them all and delete them, get them out of the way, and then I'm going to click on label slope. And this one functions a little bit similarly, but I can just go ahead and select the different slopes, hit enter, and then a dialog box pops up this time. I can specify a couple different things here. I can change the draw style from 2D to 3D, so you have the ability to use this in 3D. And then the output format is slope or grade. I'll keep it at slope. You can add a prefix or a suffix to the text that populates. The text offset, you know, that would be the distance from the actual slope line that you're specifying. The text height, you can change that. I'm going to make this 1 unit. I just want to make sure it's large enough. You can change the color. So if you have any positive values, you can make them, you know, one color, and then any negative values would show up in another color. So I'm just going to click OK, and then it creates those slopes for me. So it's very convenient. Okay. So the next option here in the Annotate panel is the Polyline Wipe Out tool. Now, this one's really cool if you ever had lines over lines that you wanted to have a gap. So let me show you what that looks like, and it just makes your drawing look a little bit cleaner in certain situations. So let's do this Polyline Wipe Out. And I'll show you first what this looks like. So the offset value. So this is where I say how big of a gap I want, a buffer, I should say, around the object that I'm wiping out. So I'm going to keep the offset value at, let's do 2 here and see how that looks. And then I want this object to be the one that is kept. And then when I hit enter, now I have the ability to draw a wipeout box, and you'll see what happens. Okay, so that I made that kind of large. But the cool thing about this wipeout tool is because it's a polyline, I can adjust it very easily. So even if you did, make that a little too large, or something you didn't love the way it turned out, you still have the ability to make that look a little different. Now, you may be wondering, why do I have this box here? This doesn't really look all that great. Well, you can change the frame settings. So if I go back into that Polyline Wipeout, and then down here, you'll see the option in the command line that says frame settings. And then right now it's set to 1. So if I set it to 0, then it actually wipes that out for me. So this line didn't disappear, it's still there. But the wipeout is there, and it just makes things look cleaner in certain situations, especially if you're doing like maybe a typography map or a topography map or something along those lines where you wanted to show separation between some of your line work. So that one's really great. The next one that we're going to talk about are these different legend options. So I'm going to go through these really quickly. So the block legend, these objects that I have here are actually blocks. So if I click on block legend, it's showing me all the blocks that it finds in my drawing in this dialog box that pops up. And I am good with all of those. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then it populates a awesome legend for me that took me 2 seconds, whereas if you did this the long way, you would have had to create a table and then add all the symbols to it, and so it's just, this is so much easier than doing it kind of the old-fashioned way, if you will. The next option here is the hatch legend, and this one's really cool because creating a hatch legend can be somewhat time consuming, just as creating a block legend would be. So if I click on hatch legend, and again, this finds all the different hatches that I have in my drawing. Now, if you had multiple objects that you didn't want to show in this legend, you could actually just very easily uncheck those and turn those off. You can, if you had a table style set up in your drawing, you could select it down here too. You could change the title of it if you wanted to. I'm actually going to call this one Hatch Legend, just so it looks a little bit different. And then if I click OK, and then click once, and then it creates this awesome legend for me. Now, one thing that is also really neat about this is you can change the scale of what your legend I'm sorry, the hatch previews look like. So if I go back into that hatch legend option and I can change the scale. So these are all, relatively large. So that's why we go back to this. You can't really see what these, specifically look like on a larger scale. And it's not going to affect the scale of the hatch that you already have drawn, which is really great too. So if I go ahead, I'm going to make these all much smaller so that we can see. Oh, no, I don't want 1.5. I want 0.25, and and I'm just double clicking here, and it applies the same scales that I set to the other lines, and then just click OK. Now, you do have to draw an additional one, but you can see the hatches look a lot better. You may want to adjust this one here, but you can also, change the names of them, and you get, a lot of functionality with these legends here. And then the line type legend, I'm not going to go into that one, but it's very similar. You just create a legend based on the different line types that you have in your drawing. The next one I'm going to show you, this one's really cool. This one does a sum of all text, and it's very easy. So I have these texts here that have to be, I mean, they can be either M text or regular text boxes. But if I select all of them, it calculates the sum for me. So if you had multiple text boxes that you wanted to know the sum, so if I just click on all of those, hit enter, and then I can just click here to add the value. And it's a little small, but it did add everything up appropriately. So it's telling me that the total of those numbers was 36. So just a really, easy little tool that you can use. And I'm sorry, I realize it's already 11:30, and we do have a couple more things to do. So if you want to stick with me, I will keep going. I'm pretty close to wrapping up, but just so you can see these other tools here that we have. So the next layout panel that's next after the text panel is the Create Viewport panel. This one's really cool because it allows you to create a viewport from model space, which we're so used to creating viewports in layouts in our layout tabs and our paper space. You can actually create the viewport here. So it does make things a little bit easier. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I wanted to I'll use this object here. So if I create a viewport here, the most important thing to do, so if you had a layout created on paper space, you had a title block and all that stuff, you would know what your margins are, but I'm just going to keep these at 0 for now. You'll see what that does when I do that. It asks you what viewport setting, or your viewport settings are. So if you know what layout tab you want it on, you can select that. The scale, I'm just going to keep it at 1/2 inch, but it'll always coincide with whatever scale you have in your drawing. You can lock the viewport once you have it placed, which is really nice too, or you can unlock it if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then my screen allows me to draw. I just clicked in it, it brought it to there. But essentially, you can see, what that does. So it actually just created a viewport for me very easily just by clicking. Oh, I think I see what happened. I think my box was really large and I couldn't even see it. I think it was off screen. But again, a really easy way to just create a viewport very easily, much easier than we're used to. So I'm going to go back out here to model space. The next thing, so the next option here, rename sheets. So I don't actually have a sheet set up in my drawing, so unfortunately I can't show you this one successfully, but if I did, it would allow you to rename multiple sheets at once, as well as change the layout names down here, these tabs, really easily with familiar spreadsheet style editing. So again, really, really easy way. If you've ever had to go through the process of renaming all of your layout tabs, which I have many times, just if a project changes or something, this cuts that time in half by being able to do that very, very quickly. I've always wished that there was a way to do it much quicker, and I'm so glad that there is now with these tools. So it's awesome. Export to XYZ is another option here. This one is just another way to export data from AutoCAD, any text data that you may have to like an Excel spreadsheet situation, or if you're using any other type of spreadsheet software, that would work too. The next panel here is copy to clipboard. So this one sounds kind of basic, but it's actually really helpful. So what happens is if I click on folder, what this does, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought something was going to open. I'm thinking of the open folder. So copy to clipboard. When I click on folder, it copies the path of the file or the folder that this file lives in, and copies it to my clipboard, and it actually was showing me down here in my command line. So it copied the to clipboard right here. So then what I could do, if I wanted to access that really quickly, I can just go into my Explorer here and see when I pasted it, it brings me out to my desktop. If I just hit enter here. This is going a little slow. But essentially that, I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but that's what that will do. Same thing with the file here. That one will do the same thing for you. It will copy the location of the file name, the whole path to the clipboard for you. Now open folder, this is the one that I was thinking of before. This one instantly opens the folder on your computer that this drawing is in currently. So if I click on that, and this is what I was looking for. So this opens up, I just happen to have this saved on my desktop. So this opens up right here, and it's really helpful. I love this option here, because what this can do is, I'm sure many of you have been in this situation. If you've ever opened up a file that was auto-recovered, and you're not 100% sure where that file may end up, because you have, you know, your temporary files and all of that on your computer, and sometimes it's hard to identify where AutoCAD saves those for you. So this will always find that location for you very quickly if you ever have trouble locating a auto-recovered file, because you know, when you're and when you're panicked, if something crashes, it's so nice to know that you can just very easily click that and get to that option really quickly. And then they also have the option to open folder here, and your desktop or your My Documents folder, you can open those up really easily too. And that is pretty much it. So I don't see that there are any questions on here, but if you guys do have any questions, please let me know, and we can get those answered for you really quick, and then we'll wrap this up. So I'll give everybody a few seconds to type in some questions. Okay, well, I don't see that anybody has any questions, but if you do, please feel free to reach out to your salesperson, and if it's something specific that I can answer, they will route you to me. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and definitely, like I said, reach out if anything comes up. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.